Okay guys, welcome to your events planning seminar. In this session we are going to be thinking about how to run absolutely fantastic events. A lot of what you do in the next year will be centred around events, so we want to make sure they are really excellent, because events are part of how you guys are learning to do and then also do justice in the way of Jesus. So they will be key for helping people move down the spiral and grow in their pursuit of justice in the way of Jesus. They help people become personally convicted. They help people become spiritually equipped and theologically rooted. They help people grow in their relational connectedness. They help people be practically activated, and they help people be critically engaged. And so we want to make sure that a dodgy event doesn't put people off engaging with justice and get in the way of sound content. Also, events are often someone's first engagement with Just Love. I don't know if that was true for you and it was your first interaction. So we want them to have a really welcoming, warm, high quality, exciting and fruitful first interaction with Just Love, and keep coming. Imagine if someone stops coming to Just Love and then learning how to do justice in the way of Jesus because the one event they went to was really lame. So this seminar is about helping you run high quality, creative events which are exciting places to be and which see more students become passionate about justice and therefore injustice crumble. So it's an exciting prospect. So this session we're going to think about 4 key areas for you to consider as your event plan, and I'd love you to return to these throughout the year. And these 4 areas are clarity, creativity, community and quality. Clarity, creativity, community, quality. 4 sounds for you. And these are all essential elements to running a fantastic event. So we are going to learn these things on a live worked example. So before we start, I am going to need you to pause me for a moment and just take a moment to think of an injustice area that matters to you, something you want to see change. So that could be food poverty or homelessness. So take a pause. What's an injustice area that matters to you? Okay. The next thing I want you to do is just think about a way you could respond to that. So this doesn't need to be like a perfect watertight idea. It's just something to workshop around. It might be you want to run start a campaign around something. It might be that you want to run a learning event or a fundraiser for a charity, engaging with that, or a lifestyle changing event or a learning event. I said learning. So, if you said you were passionate about one day slavery, you might want to plan a fundraiser for IGM. If you were passionate about food poverty, you might want to run a food waste feast and learn about what food poverty is, or we could do many different options. If you are passionate about rubbish pollution, you might want to run a week-long thing with your community where they practice going zero waste. All sorts of things. So think about your issue and think about, do I want to do learning, lifestyle, fundraising, campaigning, some form of fundraising, or alternative? Pause, have a think. Okay, so let's dive into our first principle and you will apply it to your idea. So number 1 is clarity. And I want you to first start with why. I can't stress that enough. I cannot tell you how many times I've debriefed an event with students after events, and they've said, yeah, they're fine, or they went well. And I've said, did it do what you wanted it to do? And it appears that they're not sure because they're never entirely sure fully why they were doing. And so the event, they went fine, it went well, but maybe there weren't that many people. Maybe the people that were there weren't that excited to be there. Maybe no one's going away different, and ultimately it's all going to be forgotten. A lot of the time, people haven't really thought about why they're running the event. So with each event you run, it's so important that you have clarity around the purpose of the event. We always want to start with, why are we doing this event? So what is the purpose of this event, and why are we doing it in this particular way? So once you've got that, like, why am I doing it? Why am I doing it in this way? Or what's the best way for it to reach that purpose? Then you want to plan to do just that. And once you know what you're trying to achieve, let's make that happen and not worry about doing 15 other things at once. Know your purpose, plan to make that purpose happen. You don't need to squeeze in a talk, a worship evening, a social and a prayer night all in one just because we're Christian. We don't need to do them every single time. And doing all of them just makes a bad version of all of them. Know why you're doing what you're doing and set about doing that. Having clarity around your purpose of your event will help you plan because you know the most important things to focus on. It will also help you make sure that your event does something and bears some fruit, because you'll be clear on where you're trying to get to. And it will ensure that your events have cohesion across the term. If you can work out the purpose of all of the events, you can make sure that you're taking the people around you on a journey of learning and growing. We don't want events to be a sort of random scattergun selection of nice one-off events that don't fit together, but we want your local and your personal and your global expressions to be working together cohesively to move you and your friends down the spiral. You want them all to build on one another and work towards our vision. So being really clear on the purpose of each event helps you know more clearly the journey that you're all going on. And it also helps you be really clear on how you communicate with others. So for clarity, we start with why. We then plan to do what the why is and not 15 other things. And then we tell others really clearly. A lack of clarity can put people off coming to things. Because they don't really understand what's going to happen when they get there. They don't really know if they're interested because they don't really know what they're coming to. And they don't know what to expect, which actually is unsettling for people who are new to settings. If you don't have a clear sense of the purpose and vision of your event, it's going to feel really disjointed for those who attend. And it's much easier for you to invite someone, and people are much more likely to come along to an event that is well planned out, well thought through. It's more obvious why they should go. I had a student a few years ago that wanted to run a stand for freedom for IJM, and raising awareness events are kind of funny because sometimes people are like, but what's the point? We're not making any difference. But she was really sure that what I want to do is I want to raise awareness. I want people to learn. And so on every hour of the 24 hours, she arranged a different mini talk to help people grow in their understanding of trafficking and modern day slavery. And it was so helpful for her that she wasn't trying to do 15 other things. She was like, I want my community to grow in their understanding of the issue and for many other people to be drawn into that learning journey. That meant she could just focus on running a really excellent program. Another example would be that if you wanted to run a social or something, you don't just want to run any old social. You want to work out what is the point of you running a social. Is it shared memories you want to facilitate? Is it meaningful and deep conversation? Is it just getting to know each other in a light way? Because then, hosting a dinner party with a theme like childhood and asking them to share their favourite stories of childhood traditions, leading their favourite childhood games or bringing their favourite childhood food, that would be really appropriate for silliness and lightness and getting to know each other better. But if you're running a social, what you really wanted to do was grow deep in justice together, you've kind of missed the point. So clarity, we want to know, why are you doing the event? And why is the way you've gone about it the way you've gone about it? And then you want to plan to do just that. And then you want to tell others nice and clearly. So how do we get clarity? To help you plan events, these are some of the questions you can ask yourself, and I'm going to give you a minute to start thinking them through. Does the style of event I've chosen, fundraising, learning, etc., does that actually help us reach the event's purpose? Number one. Number 2, how does this event help us reach the goals of the year? So if one of your vision or goals for the year was to increase your community's engagement with local justice issues in your city, but all of your events are going to be like socials or prayer nights for global intercession, then that's not going to help you achieve your goal. Nice and simple. So how does it help us reach the vision and goals that we said at the start of the year matter to us? 3, can I articulate the vision of this event to others? Am I clear on what the point is? 4, where does it fit into the spiral? Is it like helping people realise that justice matters? Is it moving them to action? Is it helping them think a little bit more deeply about injustice? This is really important because it will impact the type of event you run. For example, you might say, I want to run an event about homelessness. But what's the purpose of the event? Is it to equip people to know the best way to respond to rough sleepers who ask for help? Or is it to inspire people to get involved in your community's volunteering? Or is it to help people understand the wider socioeconomic and political factors that impact people who are sleeping rough? The objective beyond I want to run an event about homelessness would require different events to clearly deliver that aim. So thinking about where it fits on the spiral can help you get a little bit more specific about what you're aiming to do. And we often don't make enough distinction for who the events are for. But people who've never thought about justice before and people who've thought about justice loads, they need different things. And when we try and meet in the middle, sometimes it can be a bit lukewarm. It's like not got enough entry points for the guys who've never thought about justice, and it's just not challenging enough for the people who've been around for a while. So it's okay to have different spaces for different stages of the spiral. A good practice at the start of term is to map out all the different events you're planning to do with the vision and the purpose of them, and then the point of the spiral that they're hitting. And then you can assess, do they flow well together? Are we taking people on a journey? Are we only focusing on one part of the spiral? Are we doing anything for people that have never thought about justice before? Are we doing enough for the people who've been around for a while? So the first key element to planning an event is having clarity. So I want you, with your pretend idea, to go through and ask yourselves those questions. Why? Why this event? Why are we doing it in this way? What's its purpose? Where is it at the spiral? You have 5 minutes, so pause me here. Okay, the next thing is creativity. Woo! It is so important that you can release some creative juices as you're planning your events, because there are so many events happening at uni. And so we've got to think creatively about how to make ours stand out and get people's attention. We want our events to be memorable. So don't be afraid, if you're on a Just Love committee, to change up how previous committees have done it. Don't just stick to things because that's how they've always been done. Stick to them if they're working really well, but don't be afraid to refresh and revamp things. So some categories for you to think creatively in might be your venue. Could you mix up your venue and do a bit differently? Could you do your launch event in your favourite cafe? It doesn't always have to be a chapel or a church. Could you do it in a cool space on campus that's central for everyone? Could you go to the pub? Could you do Bible and bouldering? Thinking creatively about where you meet makes events feel like they have a core identity and people can understand what's going on. And that's true for my second point of activity. Could you do a fun activity together? It doesn't always have to be lunch and a talk. What about my group in Falmouth a while ago, in their series on refugees, wanted to do their prayer event on paddleboards as they prayed over the seas? Or, like we just said, Bible and bouldering, Bible and beers. Letter writing to asylum seekers, or inviting your MP to your lunch. Joining a big house clear out for someone that needs some help doing that. How can you do a fun activity? A slightly creative, slightly different, fun way of doing justice. Or perhaps you are wanting to do a learning event, but how can you make that fun? Of course, we're learning about weighty stuff, and that is serious, but seeking justice together can also be fun, and joy is vital. So let's think about how they could be fun and celebratory spaces. Again, that goes back to your venue and being in a fun space to be in that you want to be in at the end of the day to learn about a heavy issue. Comes to decorating the space well, having fun music on. You could have themed nights. Could you have, it's talk and tie, or it's prayer and pastries in the morning. Let's get rid of come for snacks. Guys, coming for snacks at 7:30 is confusing. Have I had my dinner? If so, why am I now having crisps? Have I not had my dinner? You're wanting me to hold out to 9 p.m. Veto the lame snacks, guys. Let's make our events have an identity. People come for dinner and it can be a different cuisine each month or each time you meet. Again, the guys in Falmouth did the Tear Fund Live Justly resource, and they did it on Saturday morning, and they had a different breakfast food each week. Like, how can you add, whether it's in the activity you're doing or to the learning you're doing, how can you bring some kind of sense of identity through a creative act that's part of it? And then literally get creative. How can you bring some of the creative arts into your events? Art, poetry, music. They can be really powerful tools to engage with injustice. So think about what other groups are doing in your area and how can you fill some of the gaps. And feel free to go a little bit crazy in the planning stage. Take off your practical hat, don't think about what's possible, think outside the box, and take 5 minutes now and just how can you inject some creativity to your event. Thirdly, community. This is so important. At Just Love, we're passionate about community. We think justice is best done with people around us, and it's best done through relationships. That's the model we're set in the Bible. So we need friends to encourage us to keep going, to share victories with, to teach us, to challenge us, to sit in the losses. We need real and honest community. And events are a great catalyst for that. So making room for people to form friendships, to become relationally connected at events is really important for whether they stay plugged in to Just Love, come back and get more involved. People come for content, which we looked at in clarity and creativity, but they tend to stay for community. They come for content. If they've never been before, they're not going to come to spend an evening with people they don't know. They're going to be like, oh, that's fascinating. I'd love to volunteer in that way. I'd love to pray. I love that charity. I'd like to fundraise, or I'd like to learn about that. They're going to come for that. But what will make them come back the next time is the people they've met. So in order to begin thinking about how we can facilitate community at our events, it's important to ask, who is welcome at your event? Really and truly welcome. Who would feel at home and who would feel uneasy? How can you make sure that everyone is genuinely welcome? So some questions to think through are you using jargon that someone that's new to Just Love wouldn't understand? Whether that's jargon about Just Love, whether it's jargon about the church scene in your city or your city itself. If you're a Just Love group of multiple universities, do you have jargon that's linked to one university that the others wouldn't understand? Think about your jargon. Think about whether they're practically accessible. For example, would someone using a wheelchair be able to get into your venue? Would someone who experiences sensory overload find the places you meet accessible to them? And can people find out that information beforehand so it's not so daunting going in? Are you making a bunch of references that you think are really normal? It's less jargon and less just like general presumption about understanding. Maybe you're mentioning that you went to Davis Tent or New Day without explaining what that is. Maybe you mentioned going skiing like it's something everyone does without realising that's a massive privilege. Think about the references you make and whether they tell everyone that they are welcome there. Is there anything that you need to let people know about the content beforehand? Do you need any guardrails or trigger warnings? And also, there's only so much calligraphy and fairy lights one group of people can take. So maybe try and branch out in terms of that. Does that communicate that, it's a more traditionally feminine environment, which maybe we don't need any more of in Just Love. So have a think about what your events are communicating, either verbally or non-verbally, about who is welcome. Secondly, to get people in the door, they need to be welcomed to come. Your Just Love staff worker will tell you all year, but personal invitations are the best way for you to make this happen. People feel seen, they feel known, they feel wanted when they receive a personal invitation. And my question to you is, how can you make your personal invite personal? So ideally, I don't just want you copying and pasting the same message that you send to everyone. It would be amazing to be able to send an invitation to someone individually that says, hey, I love chatting at our last event. You mentioned this. I think you'd find this really interesting. You should come along, and personalise your events invites so people feel seen and know before they've even got there. But then when they get there, they need to be welcomed through a welcome team. I really recommend having both an official welcome team like on the door, and then people that are like an undercover welcome team inside. So you've got people clearly inviting people in as they stand on the door. Hey, you're here for Just Love. We're so happy you're here. Welcome. Noticing any new faces that they don't recognise. But then people that you've got inside who are like prepped, not to just chat to the friends or the people they already know, and not like listed as the welcome team, but just going and chatting to the people that are not even sitting on their own, but less looped in, and also the people sitting on their own. And then you can have some kind of tag team, so the guys on the door can say, hey, I don't recognise you, like, have you been around before? And they can say, the person coming and saying, oh no, I don't. And they can say, let me walk you in, can I introduce you to something? Take them straight to the undercover person. So we want welcome both in an individual invite that gets sent, and then we want welcome at the event through on the door welcome and people seamlessly socialising and drawing people in. And then we want welcome back. This is where follow-up is so key. When people leave, have they been talked to? Do they know when the next thing that they can come back to is? Once people have come along, you always want to make sure it's really clear where their next touch point is. So invite people to follow and get connected into your social media or your WhatsApp. You got to make sure that you don't only post on social media, because not everyone has it. How can they make sure they're plugged in if they're not on Instagram? If you have a really good conversation with someone, why not ask if they want to meet for coffee? Don't be afraid to go out for coffee in the first week and make someone feel really included. And then, this sounds intense, but guys, if you can write a list every time you run an event of who came and then something you learnt about them, it makes such a difference further down the line when you can notice, well, that person's not been back for a while, shall I send them a message? Or it helps you remember things about people so you can greet them really kindly the next time. I saw the follow-up stuff done really well by the group in Extra a while ago at their launch, where they had a Google form at their launch. So straight away they said, like, they made time, scan this Google form. It was like, took 20 seconds to fill out. And then they collected the names of everyone that had been there, the year, what they were interested in, and they ticked all the stuff they wanted to find out more about, and they gave them a term card there and then. That was such high quality follow-up. And I want to encourage you, particularly for Just Love groups, in Freshers Week, bring in any old faces you might have, making sure that it's not just committee, but you've got any other old faces who can be there at Freshers Week events. Make people feel more relaxed, because they're entering an environment not just filled with like nervous first years who are all slightly on edge. It's like they're diluted amongst the ease of people who've been around the community for a while, and that will help the first years also feel a little bit more relaxed. They won't feel like they're joining a community starting from scratch, but they're joining something that already exists. So intentionally ask some old timers to come along. A while ago, I'm not sure it actually happened, but a group were thinking about whether they could do a pre-season, which I loved the idea of. So before Freshers, the weekend before, can we have a little mini Just Love, like few events, a social to reconnect, a really exciting learning event, and then like doing something already to kick off the term. So they come into Freshers and they've already been connected. And so if you've got community, I would really recommend doing something like that. So have a look now at the event that you've started planning, and have a think, like, how can you do welcome really well there? How would you want to phrase some invites? Take a few minutes to do that one. Okay, finally, we're going to get to quality. So we would love for your events to be really high quality events, places that are really organised well, with excellent speakers who can speak with confidence and integrity. We want Just Love events to have a reputation of being places that people love to go because they're fun and they leave changed. If your events are going to have the impact that you want them to, they do need to be high quality. And one of the key things that define the quality of an event is planning. And this is because when you plan in advance, you can plan all the tiny small details that separate a fine event from an amazing event. Having those small details make events become really, really exciting, and they make people feel like seen and noticed. And planning really well means that you are freed up on the night to not be hurrying around and panicking, but to focus on things like welcome and chatting to someone that's new and connecting with people. Planning well also ensures that you honour people's time, the time that they've taken to come, and loving them, and it values who they are and what they give by giving them something amazing when they show up. So how do we do that? How do we make sure our events are those fun places to be that run well and are high quality? Well, firstly, plan in advance. Ultimately, the sooner you plan things, the better. Planning in advance means you can book the most unusual and interesting venues. You can ask the best speakers. You can ask your favourite musicians to come. More people will know because they've heard about it for longer. You can advertise earlier, and they can prioritise that event. The best practice is to have your rough term plan lined up at the end of the term before, so that as soon as term begins, you can launch the term card for the whole upcoming term. And secondly, plan the details. It can be really easy to nail the big picture and forget all the details. But like I said, when we can plan those little details, you make sure that people feel really seen and people feel valued. But it also makes sure you don't have any surprises on the night. Things are much likely to get stressful if you have thought through all the small details. You're going to limit the unexpected and unwanted surprises. If you struggle with getting to small details, that's fine. Who can you gather around you who has a skill and an eye for detail and an eye for noticing potential pitfalls that can help you figure that out? A tool for doing those things is to think about your event and think about everything that might need to happen, and then think about what's going to need to be done a week before, what's going to need to be done 2 weeks before, what's going to need to be done a month before, 2 months before. You can use a project timeline for that, which your staff worker can show you. And we have in our on the committee, on the student resource drive, which you will all have access to, and if you don't, you can ask your staff worker. There is a folder on planning, and in that there's a how to plan a term document, and we've got a table in there that I would really recommend you use, which lists out, has a column for you writing all the events you're planning, and then it has the different categories that you're going to want to remember to think about. So the obvious ones: venue, speaker, host, but it gets down to like who's going to be on food, and then it gets down to like fun vibes and creativity, welcome team, and it means that you can always start to delegate different people to do those things. And with all of this, we want to remember that quality isn't about endless pursuit of perfection or trying to have the best event on campus. It's really just about loving people well, valuing your speakers, valuing your community, honouring their time, and engaging well with issues of injustice. So I want you to have a think now. How can you, in your event, try and make it that extra bit of quality? Take a few minutes to add some details to that. So, we are drawing to the end of our session. And a little summary for you. Clarity. Always start with the vision of why you're doing this event and why are you doing it in this way. Creativity. Think outside the box. How can you make your event stand out and help people think about injustice in a new way? Community. Think carefully about how you can widen and deepen your community through your events. Particularly think about who is welcome at your events. And finally, quality. Know the identity of the event and plan it well in advance. I'm so excited to see the events that you guys come up with this year and can't wait to hear all about them. Have fun!